Well, I'm sure as we've all heard the news, Destiny 2 is no longer receiving updates as of June 9th, 2026. This has got to be one of the saddest days of this year so far, or over the past few years in Destiny's history. Um, and as someone who has been playing Destiny for the better, well, for more than half their life, this news has been really sad to hear. Obviously, I believe everybody saw it coming really ever since Lightfall. We all just kind of started to see where Destiny 2 was going to come to an end. It was no longer an if, it was more of a matter of when will Destiny 2 end. And it still hurts because I love Destiny. I think Destiny has always had the most potential out of any first-person shooter out there. It's had one of the coolest worlds, one of the coolest stories, really up until about Witch Queen, in my opinion. And it just had the most potential out of any first-person shooter out there. From the moment I started playing, the world sucked me in, and while the story wasn't exactly that great, the actual world and the feeling of fighting for humanity's survival was awesome. You know, I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and Destiny, when it was leaning heavily into sci-fi, was when it was at its peak, the storytelling and the world. But for the past few years, Bungie has been putting out worse and worse content, worse and worse updates and expansions and seasons and changes and everything. From Lightfall being a complete total, like, just misstep in story, from Witch Queen to being kind of good, but still just a story not going in the same sort of tone and pace as a sci-fi shooter. The art style continuing to be destroyed, and now it's the final DLC for Destiny before this Destiny Legacy, whatever, is a Star Wars the crossover. And what's funny is that there was, DLCs, for Sivu or Wrath and for other characters or other story plots that were shot down in favor of a Star Wars DLC. You know, I read the writing on the wall for a long time that eventually this game would come to an end, and it is. Now, obviously, of course, it's not going off on the weakest note possible. I think the DLC, yes, but the actual content we're getting is great. You know, they're bringing every single destination and raid and dungeon weapon up to par with modern standards, which is great. And that's pretty much every single gun in this game. I'm sure there's other ones out there that they're going to do the same too as well. Maybe we'll see. Who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? We get Pantheon, of course, which will be fun. And it's great that that is what Destiny is ending on. But what makes me even sadder is the fact that Destiny 2 is incomplete. And this is live, by the way. I mean, here's a directory now. Obviously, we're going to get a different directory, but Io, Mars, Mercury, and Titan are all gone. And Red War, Forsaken with its Tangled Shore. We're missing 5 locations. And never mind all the seasonal content. Callus's ship, which was a pretty cool patrol zone. And that was in the game. That was probably one of my favorites for a little while. I just thought it was really cool. But man, do I miss those worlds. I miss that era. I part of it might just be because I was a kid, right? That was, 8th grade going into high school, not college. When I was playing Destiny during that time, 'cause that was right before COVID happened, and then COVID didn't happen, and yeah, Destiny carried me throughout the lockdown. That was when I was able to play, online shooters for the first time. I would play Crucible. I remember when Hard Light was the meta for like for like a decent bit. During, I think it was Season of the Worthy, or was it Dawn, or whatever seasons was that year. I can't even remember what the names. I know it was like Season of Dawn, then it was like that Osiris one, and there was Worthy and Arrivals. I remember Arrivals very well. That was funny, and I remember when they announced Sunsetting too. was literally the day or two before I got Recluse finally. And I was so pissed because Recluse would be worthless. And then years later, they added back in the game with sunsetting. So, you know, time is a flat circle, I guess. But those were the days of Destiny for me, and I still had a lot of fun. You know, even with sunsetting and stuff like that, being in the game and the content vaulting. I've done so many Deepstone Crypts and Vaulted Glasses. I cannot wait to do those again on June 9th with all the new tiered loot and that system. I can't wait to do them again because I loved those raids. I loved raiding in Destiny for a long time, especially when I had a lot of friends who would play this game. Now it's only me and a buddy, so it's kind of hard for us to do raids. We still two-man dungeons all the time. And we're preparing to, you know, play for June 9th. But it's just really sad. And I think the reason why Destiny 2 is dying is because of mismanagement and just I think the management of this game is probably the worst out of any game. For example, how many storylines do you know of in this game that were being developed in seasons and in expansions that lead nowhere? I'll give you a great example. Um, let's see, what's a really good one? Now I can't think of the top of my head. There was a few in Beyond Light. Oh, Banshee. Banshee being Clovis Bray. That goes nowhere. And then years later, this year they replaced his voice actor in for solo ops, and he's taking place in solo operations, even though he's just a voice actor who says voice lines of nothing. And that was how many years? That's 6 years after Beyond Light that they're finally doing something again with Banshee's character after they already revealed that stuff to us. Or how about in the seasonal content, Old Chicago, where Old Chicago has been rumored for years at this point, right? But during Season of the Hunt, there was really big rumors, and then Witch Queen gets delayed, and presumably, I remember from if I'm remembering the leaks correctly, that they moved Old Chicago's location to then become Witch Queen, and a lot of the swamp assets were apparently like similar. So, you know, that goes nowhere. There's other storylines too. I mean, Uldren Sov and the Crow's a great one. Were Forsaken, and then they never do anything with his character for years, and he's just kind of there. Or each season just feels like disconnected and disjointed, and even expansions. Primarily after Beyond Light, just kind of felt disjointed almost. Like if you went and played Witch Queen and then Lightfall, they felt like they were not even connected in the same game, where their stories just kind of had nothing to do with each other. And of course, you can definitely make the argument for Destiny 1 to have the same thing. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is the perfect argument for wise why I think the mismanagement in this game was really bad. But that's definitely a factor for me. And what's also a big shame is the way that Destiny's story went. Right? I miss when the darkness was just a force in literally the dark. It had no face, had no name, it was just evil. I miss when we weren't allies with the Fallen or the Cabal. And I'm not saying the storylines for those were bad, but I think that there was some aspects that were done really poorly. For example, Season of the Splicer, where humanity is viewed as being almost kind of evil for not wanting to live amongst the Fallen. Well, the Fallen came through and ransacked Earth and our colonies throughout the stars for loot after the collapse, and they killed and murdered humanity. And yet the storyline goes, we're like, oh, we need to be allies with them. Like, really? That kind of sucked for me. I felt like there was more they could have done for that storyline. The Cabal, I think they did a pretty okay job with, I'm not even going to lie. But I will say the Cabal as a race, as a species, especially after Red War, kind of just became less interesting. No longer were they a galaxy-spanning empire. They were just kind of nothing. And Xivu, oh, here's another great storyline that goes nowhere. Xivu Arath, teased and rumored for years that we would go to war with her, presumably taking back um, Title's home planet. I forgot the name of the Cabal's home planet. I'm just blanking on it. Because Keitel, I think Xivu Arath uses that as her war moon. And that goes nowhere. Or it's on Enceladus is another great one though. Enceladus I think is what Europa is. If you look at the concept art for Enceladus or Europa, they're really the same thing. There could have just been a chance that way back during the concept days that they mixed those planets up and that there wasn't a distinction between the two. They just didn't know which planet they wanted to use. There's a really good chance of that being the case. But it's a shame that that went nowhere. Again, and oh, Rasputin goes nowhere. His character disappears, comes back for one season, goes nowhere. And that's just mismanagement of story. Mismanagement of actual like game mechanics too. Stuff like weapon crafting where they introduce not just being able to craft weapons. I don't know how I felt about that. At first I really liked it, but then overall as I kind of grew, I'm like, this is a looter shooter. I get weapon crafting. I like the ability to reroll. I think rerolling's fine. But I like when my loot is completely random for the most part. I do like the weapon leveling though. I like that, being able to upgrade and upgrade perks. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Where I felt like weapon crafting, they introduced that system where you have the improved perks, right? Let me see if I have a gun. Yeah, here, right? Where they knew that these enhanced traits or enhanced perks were going to be like a balancing issue. Well, instead of doing what they're doing, how they're doing with the last update, where everything's getting, their new versions, we're putting out new versions of every single raid and destination weapon available. Instead of them doing something like that, where Destiny, where they rework all the weapons to make sure everything is up to par, and that there's not really big power gap or creep between new and old guns, or at least offering you ways to get all those old ones. Well, you can't do that. Well, they didn't do that with weapon crafting, and that kind of sucked. It felt half-assed, and now I want to talk about the half-assed of this game. Every single season and DLC in this game really began to feel half-assed, especially after they left Activision. Right, there was a heavy emphasis on Eververse. I mean, we take a look in the Eververse store, and you just see how much stuff is crammed in here. This ruins the entire art style of the game, by the way, the Destiny stuff. And we can argue about art style all day and night. I think Destiny 1's got the superior art style and art direction 100%. Though D2 did have a pretty decent one for a while. I don't think it was better than Destiny 1, I'm going to be honest. I always think Destiny 2 kind of focused on much more pretty armor and weapons. Destiny 1 always felt more sci-fi. Hopefully I said those numbers right, but I think everybody's going to pick up what I'm putting down when I talk about this. But that was just kind of the thing, was that it's just being mismanaged. And then we also see, even now, the mismanagement. People who were working on Destiny 2 apparently didn't even know, like the new expansion was going to come out, that Destiny 2 was going to die until they announced it. Now, of course, I don't necessarily know how much I believe the headlines of that, because you would have to know, right? Because they say in the blog post they're going to have a few story missions and story beats to leave characters in quote-unquote interesting places. But yeah, I don't know. And then the other thing that I want to talk about with this game is why I think it died as well. Other than what I've just mentioned, I think it also died because it just went on for too long. Destiny 2 took forever to get any sort of, and similar to that stuff, any sort of meaningful story content out, right? Seasons really never offered much meaningful storytelling. I'm gonna be honest. The storytelling in the seasons was always pretty limp dick. There was never any. There was some story beats that were really cool, like for example, or just cool in general. I won't lie to you. Season of Arrivals was pretty cool. I liked the story. I thought that the activity was kind of but it was definitely fun. And getting Felwinter's Lie, and I'll talk about this next part here. Um, but I felt like that there was never any sort of strong story outside of expansions, and then expansions began to get more wishy-washy. But I think it was the final death knell for this game was how do I put it? The beginning of the end of the community. if that makes any sense. Well, my favorite part about Seasons was, right, or the world. I should say the community and the evolving world, because that's kind of also what I mean by meaningful storytelling, is because the world never felt like it changed. And I'll give plenty of examples. But what I liked about Seasons, the first year that Destiny was only ran by Bungie, and I'll give them some credit, was the open world changes. I loved that when there was a new season that came out, even if you didn't own any of it, you could still play the new seasonal event that was on the locations of the planet. I like that you could still do, I think it was called Containment in Season of Arrivals. I like that you could still do um, whatever that escalation, I think it was just called Escalation Protocol on the other planets too. I don't know the name of it, where you were like arming up, where you were setting up war sats. I thought that was so cool. And seeing the open world changes. Like, do you guys remember seeing all the like the towers and stuff like that that Rasputin would put up? That to me was really cool, because it always felt like that the world was changing. And the live events, when I saw the Almighty live event that took, I forgot how many hours. I don't even remember how long it took. I just remember it took way too long to like kick off. It was supposed to kick off at like near reset, like an hour after reset or something. Forgive me if I'm getting these times wrong. And it took like hours for anything to happen. It was over and done with. But I liked that a lot. I thought that that was the coolest part of Destiny 2 when I played during that time, was because there was this huge sense of community and there was this sense of an evolving world. And this slowly began to go away after Luke Smith left as his creative director role. And again, similar to the shifting management, you know how I was saying like new seasons and stuff? Well, they also had new writers and new story leads and new just leads in general on the game. It felt pretty consistently. So it led to a really inconsistent expansion experience for the most part. But to me at least, when Luke Smith left, and I don't think he was perfect either, left his role at Bungie, he was still at Bungie, I believe, just doing something else. But to me at least, that was the best part about what he did, was it felt like every single thing that was done changed the open world. And you could see that in his seasons. For example, with Nessus, right? If after this, I'll load into Nessus. Oh, wow. It's just screenshot something mid live gameplay. What the flip, dude? But his stuff felt like it was changing the open world. And there's an example on Europa I can go and show you guys right now before I go to Nessus. It always felt like there was stuff changing, even smaller stuff was changing in the open world, where they would change certain aspects of it. If we go here, right? This was the opening season of the Splicer. Again, I didn't really care much for the season, but I like that this was added. Does this matter? No, but it shows that the world is changing, right? Or we'll go take a look at Nessus, and then we're going to take a look at the exact opposite of stuff that they failed to do in the newer, with newer seasons. And I always felt that for me, this was the coolest part about Destiny, was that the open world felt alive, that the world, the universe felt alive. And part of what I think they killed with Destiny, and luckily they're bringing back the director, and it looks beautiful, right? The director looks beautiful, the one they're putting in, but Portal mode killed a lot of Destiny for me. Seeing that portal, because it's like every single time I load into this game, it's a huge morale dip, where it's like, what am I even looking at? Like, this isn't Destiny. This is hell, right? But again, Luke Smith leading the charge on creating an open world that felt like it was evolving. Season of the Chosen with this huge tank, or the EDZ with where you could go all the way up to not the pool, the dam, right? That hydro dam. To me, stuff like that was always cool. Was always something that I liked. And I always liked these scannables. This isn't a scannable, but Nessus is, I think, the only open world location with scannables left. I know they kind of replaced them with patrol zones that have like the thing where the patrol beacons, that where you go up to something, you scan it, and then you get some dialogue. I always liked the scannable stuff in Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. It always felt like there was something to explore, and it was cool getting a bit of world lore. What was there, Vax or something? Interesting. But that to me was always really cool. But then slowly but surely they stopped doing this. A good example would be this menu. I can't wait for the new stuff. The EDZ, right? Where the sludge in the season, whatever season came out with Lightfall, right? Where the EDZ gets its, where they get invaded by, I think it's the Lucent Hive. No, they get invaded by the Darkness enemies, the Shadow Legion, right? And there's no changes to the sludge. Or maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe those were battleground activities. Oh no, no, this was the Lucent Hive activity. Yeah, from Season of the Risen, where they do no changes to the open world. And I saw like, oh man, like, but in the activity, like this is completely different. Like there's a Hive castle that's all the way over there, and it's like, you come in here. Oh, here's Rasputin's bunker, by the way. Rasputin's such an underused character. One of the coolest ideas I think ever in Destiny. Ever since Destiny 1, I was always intrigued by that type of character. I thought it was really cool. Anyways, as I was saying, like there was no changes to the open world, especially after that, which to me really sucked because that was always one of the coolest things for me was the open world. Destiny 1, when I was a kid, I could only ever play the open world because I never had PlayStation Plus. My parents wouldn't allow it. Oh wait, what? Can I go in this? Damn it. I forgot what quest this is from. I know like in year 1 you would go in here and you would get your like new supers and whatnot. I remember the old super trees. Those sucked. Except for when the fact that, you know, nowadays they made it to where every single grenade is. But yeah, like that just that just continued to degrade the game. Was that there was no changes to the open world. And I think finally was the story going in a direction. Obviously I mentioned the alien races, but Lightfall's location, if like, makes no sense story-wise, but it also doesn't fit in with Destiny as an art style. Destiny always felt like a post-apocalyptic world. And then you go to Neomuna, it's completely different. And I get that that was part of their intention. But to me, it always felt out of place, out of touch, and just out of it, just not. It never felt right. Also, Nimbus was an annoying ass character. I never want to be there ever again. EDZ will almost always be my home, or Cosmodrome. One of the two. Those are my favorite locations. And Nessus, honestly. But, yeah, like, for me at least, it was really sad seeing that they weren't doing any open world changes, or that the open worlds just were not good. And the story was failing because of that. The Witness, for example, was honestly, the Darkness became a huge disappointment. There was no new enemy race. Again, it felt half-assed with Lightfall, where they're like, "Oh yeah, there's no new enemy race," and then all the Darkness ships are empty. Well, then by the time that they introduced the Dread, it's almost too little, too late. Not only that, but they didn't really feel like Darkness enemies. What happened again earlier with the storytelling, where the Drifter's on some planet with like this black, greasy, slimy sludge, light-eating monster that they have in a cage. Should that not have been what the Darkness was? Again, there was just stuff like that that for me never really. It just killed it. It just killed the game for me. Stuff like that just killed the story because you you build up to all this stuff and it's just nothing burger. It always felt like that Bungie consistently would get comfortable and then get lazy. But then get so lazy to where they'd get themselves backed into a corner where everybody's like, oh, I love backed into a corner Bungie because they usually make good content. I, I, I don't get that. That's just an abusive relationship. And the story just, there's so much more I could talk about on the story, but I'm not even going to because there's no point. If you guys want to experience a good Destiny story, just play Destiny 1. And don't even imagine of Destiny 2 because it doesn't feel the same. And I think that I'm not the only one with that opinion either. My friends are the same way, where Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 feel completely separate from each other. And now where do we go on from this? I mean, Bungie is making Marathon. That game's dead. They killed Destiny 3 or Destiny 2. I'll talk about Destiny 3 in a bit. But Destiny 2 is gone, right? And if presumably for Marathon, I mean, there's no other reason why they would shut down Destiny 2. It's not like player numbers mattered, because Marathon's player numbers suck. And people have been consistently, like, people want to come back to Destiny. I don't know a single person out there that wants Destiny 2 to continue to suck. I know there's a lot of people out there that hate Destiny 2 and hold contempt for a lot of developers, and honestly, for good reason. Like, the gaslighting in the community, and we'll talk about this, because now I'm talking about Bungie. Well, where do they go? They say they're working on incubation projects. Well, they couldn't even handle 2 games at once. They couldn't handle Destiny 2 and Marathon. And Destiny 2 was already kind of on the back leg for content. Weapons were just becoming reskins. Seasonal content was getting less and less. There was less and less focus and polish on Destiny 2 as a whole. So it wasn't like that Destiny 2 was getting a bunch of resources in comparison to Marathon. And Marathon is already a game built on plagiarism. Plagiarism will make me God. Lest we forget that pretty much the entire art style of Marathon is plagiarized. So again, it's not like there was a lot of effort being put into it anyways. But it's just such a shame that they couldn't handle these 2 projects. And I know that a lot of people say that they want Destiny 3. I do as well, but like I said with the story, where do you go? There would have to be so many retcons that Shadow and Order could never have happened. The stories in Destiny 2, you can't even play anymore. You can't even play Red War. So where do you go? I think the only way they could go with the Destiny 3 is similar to Destiny 2. Xivu Arath comes in and absolutely murders everything on Earth. I'm talking last city destroyed, Earth is under siege, Sol system is completely overrun with Hive. The Cabal and human alliances got annihilated. The Cabal, like everybody's for themselves. The story is almost reset, and the new big bad is Xivu Arath. And the darkness just ends up being just kind of this thing in the background where they begin to rewrite some of the things slowly, but makes sense. I personally would write the Witness not necessarily as the darkness itself, but more as a LARPer almost, because I always felt that kind of way. I never really felt like the Witness was the darkness. The Gardener as a character is still a thing somehow, and not the Gardener, the Winnower. So who knows? I feel like they never really need to make those things an actual like character with the person. They can always just be something in the background. But I feel like that's the only way you can move forward with the Destiny. Destiny 3 is if Xivu Arath is the main bad guy, and everything is destroyed, and that, you know, we have to fight for Earth back. At the end of the campaign, we fight for Earth back, we win, yada yada yada, but we're still fighting now in a war against Xivu Arath. You know? And that is, to me, the only way they could move forward. I think it would be perfect. 100%. I think it would be perfect. Because you could completely reset everything. You have a lore excuse. Oh hey, the tower got destroyed again and our vaults are all empty. We're gonna re-release Last Word within a year and a half, hopefully, and yeah, you know. But to me, that is the only way they can move forward with the Destiny 3. And the other question is, do you even want a Destiny 3? It's gonna be made probably by a lot of the same people who made Destiny 2. Not the original Destiny 2 or Destiny 1, but the new Destiny content. You really want that level of voice lines? That level of like almost laziness? Because from top down, Bungie was a failure. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because you take a look at again the plagiarism from Marathon. Like that's the kind of stuff that would be probably in Destiny 3, honestly. Do you even want Destiny 3? Obviously the answer would be yes. I think most people might. I would still want it, but you know, that's Definitely the question in the back of my mind. Is it really even worth it? At the end of the day, at the end of this long and sad day and sad journey of Destiny, whatever happens next, Destiny 3, Bungie's shut down, sold back to Microsoft, chopped up, sold to Tencent, fed to the Chinese Communist Party, who knows, right? Whatever. Destiny will always hold a special place in my heart, as I'm sure it holds a special place in all of yours. This game is a generational game. I'm gonna be honest. As much as I hate Destiny, I love it. And I never thought I would ever see the day it would actually go. And I always joked about it, like I mentioned earlier in the video. I always thought that in the back of my mind it would go, but I never really thought that it would happen like this. But man, was it fun to play this game for the times that I did. Carried me through everything in high school. And even when Lightfall came out, even when the shitty expansions came out and shitty seasons, I still played a decent bit of it. Oh, there's no more malfeasance over here. I still played because I still loved the game. Because I still loved the story and I loved the community. I remembered getting Fellwinter's Lie. I remembered soloing Whisper of the Worm before it got removed because of the glitch. If you guys remember, we do increased damage. I remember all those things. And I hate with everything in my heart to see this game go. I really do. I hope and I pray that there will be another Destiny. That maybe we get Red War. That maybe they port Destiny 1 on the PC. We'll see. I don't have anything else really to say in this video other than just rambling on and on and on about my own experiences in Destiny. And I might make that kind of video. It's just a memory for myself of what I remember of this game. Because this has been the most important game in my life. And I hate to see it go. I'm gonna miss this game. I'm gonna miss everything about it. I look forward to playing it on June 9th, and I really look forward to just playing what's left and trying to remember the experiences I had when I was a kid. I can never hate this game. You could never pay me to. And more than I already do, pretty much. But that's it for this video, guys. I know this is a really crappily put together video. But, oh hey, just as crappily as put together as the backgrounds for up here. They really never thought anybody would look that hard. There's a hole. But yeah.